Hello, everyone, and welcome to Big Sam's Long Balls podcast with me, Dan. Now, today I want to talk about Mikel Arteta and his Arsenal team, which are really taking the Premier League by storm this season. They're top after 3 games. They look like they're playing some of the best football in Europe at the moment. And can Arsenal this season do the seemingly impossible and win the Premier League title? Now, I'm not an Arsenal fan myself. If you're brand new to the podcast, well, firstly, hello, make yourself very comfortable. My name's Dan. I'm a Liverpool fan. I often do the podcast with Chris, who actually is an Arsenal fan himself. But I'm making this video on my own today. Obviously, got no Chris with me. But I want to talk about the quality that we're seeing from Arsenal at the moment. Now, I was a big doubter, I suppose, of Mikel Arteta for quite a long time. Didn't get it. Really thought that Arsenal had made a huge mistake in appointing someone with literally no managerial experience for such a huge club. And I thought there were potentially at least 2 times where I felt that this guy should be sacked by now, but he wasn't. And fair play to the Arsenal board. And I'm very happy to admit when I'm wrong on this podcast. So the Arsenal board kept faith in him. They'd seen something very, very special in him. And now Arsenal seem to be really reaping the rewards for keeping the faith, for trusting the process, believing in this Arteta project. And now Arsenal really do look like they could be one of the strongest one of the strongest sides in the Premier League this season. Now, last year really did expect them towards the end, especially to achieve top 4 Champions League football, especially without any European football to go alongside that. Arsenal were often playing 1 game a week. They didn't really go very far in the cup competitions. Obviously, they got to the semi-final in the League Cup, but got knocked out very early on in the FA Cup against Nottingham Forest. So they really just had 1 game a week last season. So I think the failure, and it was a failure, really, for Arsenal to not finish in the top 4. If you'd said at the beginning of the season last year, obviously it wouldn't have been the expectation, but from where they got to, they really should have done it. And it was such a devastating way to drop out. I think we can obviously look at the result against Tottenham last season, but I think you really look at the performance against Crystal Palace for me, which was really, really worrying. And added to my opinion on why I doubted Arteta. It looked like the worst of sort of Wenger and Emery, where they just looked so open, so exposed, and just had an absolutely physical beating from Palace that night. But they've gone away. They made some really, really strong signings over the summer. They had a fantastic preseason. I think everyone got very, very excited, and maybe a little bit of jealousy potentially from other fans, and going, well, just get back in your lane, Arsenal. Just get back in your lane. And I was looking at it from afar. Obviously, I'm not an Arsenal fan, and I thought, well, they're playing some really good football here. They're scoring goals. Gabriel Jesus looks brilliant. But the important thing to remember is it is pre-season. We look at Manchester United, to themselves had a really good start to pre-season, and have obviously had an absolute shocker, losing their first 2 games of the Premier League season. So pre-season obviously is not is not going to give you the most accurate representation of how a season's going to go. But Arsenal, throughout all of pre-season, they were scoring goals, they were playing with intensity, they looked like a top team. 3 games in, and of course it's important to just say we are just 3 games in. We've got, I think, 38 more games to go, so anything could happen. But Arsenal sit top of the Premier League table, 3 wins, 3 victories, and every single player in that team is looking at absolute quality. And they've had to play very different sort of styles so far. Away at Palace, first game of the season, under the lights at Selhurst Park, all the eyes watching you. A little bit similar to 12 months ago away at Brentford, where they obviously lost, and it was one of those. It was the most predictable shock results, if that makes sense. Before that game, we all knew Arsenal were probably going to lose to Brentford, and I think at the start of this season, a lot of people were thinking, away at Palace at night, first game of the season, yeah, I think Arsenal are going to bottle this. But they sure as hell didn't. I think they won the game 1-0 in the end. They were absolutely brilliant all game. They were fantastic. And the thing is Palace played some really good football at times. They created some chances, potentially should have scored, but Arsenal themselves defended really, really well. And obviously the new boy, William Saliba in particular, who's being compared to Virgil van Dijk, had a fantastic opening game. It was really important for him to, because obviously the hype was so big. He had to come in and really deliver. Whereas you look at the opposite, Manchester United, Martinez came in, a little bit of hype about what he'd achieved at Ajax, how he played, and obviously a little bit of a worry about his height, and he's had two, I wouldn't say absolute shockers, but he's obviously been targeted the first 2 games, whereas William Saliba has gotten better and better and better over these 3 games, obviously scoring an absolute stunner in their last one. So the optimism must be incredibly high around Arsenal at this moment in time. They then went on to beat Leicester City 4-2. Again, I suppose you could look at the opposition that they've played so far: Palace, Leicester, a Leicester team that haven't signed a single outfield player, who looked to be in a little bit of a mess, I suppose, and could be losing a few more players. And obviously Bournemouth, who have just been promoted and look like probably the weakest out of the 3 that have been promoted for me. I understand that approach. I understand when people go, look, they haven't played a top team yet. They haven't played a Manchester City, a Chelsea, or my lot, Liverpool yet. And I think that's fair enough. I think that's fair enough to say, obviously, they haven't been tested against the teams that would be expected to be in the top 4 or, challenging for the title yet. However, you can only beat what's in front of you. And they haven't really looked in trouble in any one of those games. Obviously, Leicester scored 2 against them, and Palace, played well. But Arsenal defended brilliantly. They've looked fairly comfortable in all of these games, and they've got a real pattern, a style about them, and they look like they're loving their football. They're playing under Arteta. They look like they want to be there. They want to be playing under him, which is a brilliant sign. Obviously, there's going to be sterner tests. Of course, there will. As the season goes on, as the games add up, injuries, fatigue, you name it. There will be tougher tests, but equally, I think it's important to give credit where it's due. And Arteta and this Arsenal team deserve an awful lot of credit. And what I've noticed online in particular is very few people want to give Arsenal credit. They want to keep belittling Arsenal or mocking them and going, it's just Arsenal. It's just, you've played no one. The thing is I look at my team against Palace. We drew. Yeah, there was some other circumstances. Obviously, the red card didn't help, and we played some pretty good football. But Arsenal played a very good Palace team. They ground it out, didn't they? 1-0 win. They didn't have to play some of the flashy, sexy football. They just got it done. So Arsenal under Arteta, they've got that ability to outplay, I'd argue, sort of maybe 85% of the teams in this league. They outplayed Manchester City, didn't they, last season in the game at the Emirates. They potentially have the ability to outplay Liverpool, possibly this season. But they've also got that ability to really come together, work hard for each other, and just grind out a 1-0 win. And I think if you're able to do that, your chances of challenging for the title really shoot up. I expect Arsenal to be there or thereabouts in the top 4. I don't think they will win the title this season. I think it's impossible really to look past Manchester City. They do look the strongest. But Arsenal, for me, along with Tottenham, obviously their ultimate rivals, look like the strongest 3 at the start of the season. It is a long way to go. As a Liverpool fan, I'm hoping that my team really do sort of get their act together soon and start picking up some wins and going on a run. But Arsenal started the season off fantastically well. Obviously, it would usually be an international break now. So going into the international break first, I think would give that little bit of a boost. We've still got a couple more games to go yet. But yeah, I think Arsenal will finish in the top 4. I don't know where. Maybe 3rd, maybe 4th. I don't expect them to go on and win the Premier League title just yet. But I think this is a fantastic step going forward for Arsenal Football Club and for Mikel Arteta. I think those doubts have now gone, and I can say that as someone who doubted Arteta and Arsenal for a very long time. I didn't really get the project, the process. I didn't understand what I was seeing. But right now we're seeing some fantastic football. We're seeing one of the best young managers out there strutting his stuff. And Arsenal have got an incredibly young squad. I think the youngest in the Premier League. So they're only going to go from strength to strength. They've now got that leader, that goal scorer up top in Gabriel Jesus. They've also got Eddie Nketiah, who I actually really rate quite highly. At least as a squad option, he's going to give Arsenal goals, energy, athleticism from the bench, which you really can't overlook. We're missing Divock Origi at this moment in time, in my opinion. Such a valuable member at Liverpool, although he didn't obviously play week in, week out. It's great to have someone who can come on and can find the back of the net. So for Arsenal to have Jesus and then also Nketiah on the bench, I think just will fill them with that much more confidence. Ramsdale, who saw that coming? When they signed Ramsdale, It was a bit of a joke, wasn't it? Really, I think what was it, over 30 million for a guy who's just been relegated over consecutive seasons. He's now become one of the best goalkeepers in the Premier League and could also be England's number one in a few months when we go to Qatar for the World Cup. William Saliba, like I said, he's living up to the hype. Ben White has been moved out to right back. He seems to be playing really, really well. Zinchenko has come in, a player again in Manchester City that I didn't overly rate highly. I thought actually he was a bit of a weak point. Again, it is only 3 games. Of course it is. But Arsenal are playing some sensational football. They really do look like they're going to be up there this season. The challenges for me will be, as I already said, as the season goes on, when the games start to come thick and fast. Now, Arsenal are playing Europa League football this season, so I don't think that will necessarily apply to Arsenal too much because although there'll be times where they play 2 games a week, potentially 3 games a week. Um, Obviously, when you add in Europa League, they don't really need their first team for the group stages. I'd imagine that the likes of your Salibas, your Jesus, and so on and so on would have to come into play maybe in the knockout games, maybe around like the quarterfinals. About then, I would imagine that Arsenal's sort of squad is good enough and big enough to get through the group stage at least, and that's only going to help Arsenal and Arteta because it keeps those first team players fresh. One criticism that I had over Arteta last season, and I noticed this when we played them in the semi-finals of the League Cup, is I felt that Arsenal were at their best when they were aggressive, when they were pressing from the front. They took no prisoners. They really represented Mikel Arteta's personality on the sideline. He's running up and down, and he's almost on the pitch, isn't he? Which is it's great to watch, unless you're playing up against him on that day. But Arsenal were at their best when they were like that. And then I think towards the end of the season, like the game against Tottenham, the game against Palace, and some of those defeats is when Arsenal had really run out of steam. They didn't have that energy to keep pressing teams and being physical. And then suddenly teams were able to play through Arsenal a lot easier. And suddenly Arsenal looked very, very vulnerable and quite weak at the back, whereas they hadn't really all season. And they haven't really under the majority of Arteta's tenure. So for me, over the summer, I thought a big criticism that I had over Arteta is that does he really have a backup plan? Is it all just aggressive on the front foot, pressing teams, which works brilliantly? But like I said, once fatigue, injuries, whatever, or it's just not working on that day. Can Arsenal adapt? And I felt that maybe Arsenal couldn't last season, and that was the biggest criticism I had against Arteta. So that's going to be something I will keep an eye out, and I think will be interesting to look at with Mikel Arteta's Arsenal this season. Is once we get into the season a little bit more halfway or a little bit further on, and maybe Arsenal have had a couple of injuries, maybe fatigue might start to come in, or even if it's a couple of poor results, can Arsenal turn it round and can Arteta sort of change his tactics? I think he's a very, very flexible coach. You watch him in situations, he's happy to change formation. I can't remember what game it was last season, but Arsenal seemed to be going, they had like 3 at the back, then they had 5 at the back, then it was 4, then it was back to 3. I think they lost the game in the end, or maybe drew the game. But just watching his tactical flexibility was quite incredible. So it will be interesting to see with Arsenal as the season goes on and maybe the pressure builds if they continue to be in such a high position. Can Arteta handle that with such a young squad and a lack of managerial experience himself? But when the players are tired, when the players are perhaps injured, fatigued, can he change his tactics to perhaps go, okay, we're not going to be the most energetic team in the world like Arsenal tend to be under him. We can sort of sit back a little bit more, play a little bit deeper, and hit teams on the counter attack. It'll be very interesting to see if Arsenal can do that. I think if Arteta does manage to do that, then their chances to really challenge for a Premier League title rises for me. I'm not overlooking Arsenal or Arteta anymore, and I'm certainly not undermining any of the victories that they've had over the first 3. Of course, it's not the highest quality in the world that they've played, but you can only beat what's in front of you, and they've done it comprehensively. They look like a very, very top side at the moment. Just before I go, I was about to end the video there. Arsenal are in for Pedro Neto for potentially £50 million, is what Wolves want. Arsenal have offered, I believe they've offered £35 million, or that's the price that they are willing to offer at this moment in time. Either way, so if Arsenal bring in Pedro Neto, that's another exciting player, another young player, a wide man who looks very exciting, can beat fullbacks quite easily, very creative, knows where the back of the net is. Was a player actually I was actually hoping Liverpool would be looking at some point in the season, but we don't seem to be looking at anyone. But anyway, that's a different point entirely. So Arsenal look like they could be adding another fantastic attacking talent to their already rather brilliant attacking line. The only thing though is if they bring in Pedro Neto, could there potentially be a departure? Maybe someone like an Emil Smith Rowe. Obviously, Arsenal do have a lot of options, and I think that when their first 11, when everyone's fit in that Arsenal team, does Smith Rowe get in there? For me, maybe he doesn't. He might do for you. If he does, let me know in the comments down below. But maybe if you're bringing in another attacker, it could potentially mean that someone is on their way out of Arsenal. But either way, incredibly exciting times for Arsenal Football Club. I certainly expect them to be inside the top 4 this season. It'd be great to see them back in the Champions League, a club that really belongs in the echelons of European football. So it'll be good to see them back there. Like I said, I don't expect Arsenal to win the Premier League title, but I can certainly see a title challenge this season. And why not? It doesn't matter if you're good enough, you're old enough. So they are a fantastic young team who I really look forward to watching week in, week out. So hopefully we'll keep seeing some brilliant football. Obviously, hopefully not when you guys come up against Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool. But other than that, I really wish Arsenal the best of luck this season. I'm sure we're going to be talking about them a lot on this podcast. So let me know in the comments down below, guys, your thoughts on Arsenal. Are you really excited? I imagine you must be if you're an Arsenal fan. Let me know down below, guys, your thoughts on potentially signing Pedro Neto, your starting 11 of what you would pick going forward, and do you genuinely believe that a title challenge is happening for Arsenal, or is it top 4 and you just happy with top 4 and then go from there? So let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, guys. I really hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give us a like, that'd be great, and subscribe. Just help this sort of channel, this football channel, build quite a nice fun community. So if you enjoyed the video, give us a like and subscribe, and we'll see you very soon. So thank you so much for watching.